McNair gives it to George, running right up the middle. Touchdown! Titans! There are no flags on the field! It's a miracle!
Safety, now you're one-on-one with it.
Shows why he's the man! In trouble. Sack!
Ladies and gentlemen, Titan Nation, welcome back to another episode. Today, my special guest is a three-time Pro Bowler, former Tennessee Titans QB. We have the legend himself, Matt Hasselbeck. How you doing?
What's up, Alex? Dude, Mr. Titan. I'm kind of excited to be on this. Like you do a really good job, man. Like we've never met. We don't have a mutual friend that set this up. I don't think I've ever said yes to like a out of the blue podcast thing, but you have done such a good job of kind of carrying the flag for Titans Nation for a while now, and I appreciate it. So thank you for having me on.
Well, that means the world to me. You know, coming from a person like yourself, a big fan, like I said. And the best thing about this and these interviews too is just people that leave the Titans organization, regardless, they are cemented as a favorite, a Hall of Famer, regardless. We love.
Well, it depends where they go next. You know, like I mean, hey, are you in Nashville? Where are you? Like, you're a loyal Titans guy. You're
Dallas, Texas.
Oh, shoot, man. Let's go. Good for you. Behind enemy lines.
Exactly.
I guess you're not in Houston, right?
I'm not, but I go to the games when the Titans go there, and it's rough. It's rough.
That's great. I really loved when the Titans wore their like Oilers throwbacks for the last game. I always fought to do that. Like whenever we were going down there, the Texans were like a really loud stadium. You know, like, I remember when JJ Watt was like a rookie. Like it was a tough place to play. They had a good team. And I always was like, man, if we wore our throwbacks down there, that would really be like a mind screw up with them. They'd be like, wait, huh? Like, cause they probably love the Oilers more than they love the Texans at that time. I don't know, but I was glad to see them finally do it.
And the funny thing is, like, talking about JJ Watt, he's such an advocate on getting the uniforms back to Houston, and that belongs to the the Houston Texans, not the Titans. And it's great. I go every year when we do the Oilers stuff, and I do the podcast and I talk about the game. I'm decked out in Oilers stuff, and
it is confusing. Listen, between the Baltimore Ravens, Cleveland Browns, like it gets confusing. And I remember when I was in Green Bay, I was drafted to the Green Bay Packers. Brett Favre was our starting quarterback, obviously. And we played an amazing game against I don't know, were they in Memphis at the time? Is that true? Like, what are the Tennessee Oilers? I think is what they first. Yeah. But they came up and played us in Green Bay. It was Steve McNair and Eddie George and like Javon Curse, all the stars. And we played in this game that actually was not even cold. It was like kind of warm, but it was like really thick snowflakes like coming down. And like you could barely see across the other side of the field. But I have this memory of like, though that's the Tennessee Oilers. Like I never played against the Houston Oilers. But I also had this memory of them being like kind of psyched out, like, oh my gosh, it's so cold out here. We were like, it's not cold at all. You guys are just psyched out in your head about being in Lambeau. But that was a good game. That was a good team. They had a good team and we did too. But that was before Nashville and before the Titans.
Yeah, definitely before everything. But that's cool that you even got to do that. And obviously talking a little bit about your history, I wanted to kind of touch base because I think it's actually really, really fascinating. Never got to talk to a player who has kind of like a history of athletes in their family. Again, your dad played, I think, for the Patriots, was Super Bowl champion winner. Again, he was with the Los Angeles Raiders.
So you're good.
Yeah.
Here, I'll help you out. So I was actually born in Boulder, Colorado. My dad played at Colorado. He loves CU. He just went into their Hall of Fame this year. He was very proud, and we were proud of him. So he played for the Patriots, the LA Raiders, the Minnesota Vikings, and then the New York Giants. And funny story about the Colorado, like how he ended up in Colorado. My parents are from Cincinnati, Ohio, and he ended up there because this one coach was exceptional at recruiting. And so I think my dad, I think people in Ohio thought my dad was like an all-American tight end. He was a great basketball player. Also, I think people thought he was going to go to like Notre Dame or Ohio State or Michigan or where everybody went. And he went to Colorado, and it was because of one coach named Les Steckel. And Les Steckel, who later became my dad's head coach with the Minnesota Vikings. Les Steckel was just a great recruiter and a great family friend to my mom and to my dad before I showed up. But then even once I did show up, and then I believe he was coaching on that Tennessee Oilers team when we played against against those two teams played in Green Bay. So yeah, we've known Coach Steckel for a while, but definitely grew up in a football family. And I didn't know any different. I just thought it was totally normal. I was completely clueless. People would ask me what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I was like, "Oh, I'll just play in the NFL like my dad," because like that's what all my friends, their parents did. And I was clueless, and I didn't realize how hard that was until it was time to realize that, like, hey, bro, you got a lot of work to do if you think that that's a dream that you can accomplish.
That's wild. Just to, and again, it's from another perspective of, hey, it's kind of a family norm. Like, I'm just going to play in the NFL. Like, hey, what are you going to do?
Well, the funny part about that is I thought I was going to just play tight end like my dad or outside linebacker like Lawrence Taylor. I was just like, yeah, I'll just be one of those guys, like,
okay, I got this. Now, when did you decide to start going towards QB? Did your dad push?
No, with my dad, my parents didn't even let us play tackle football growing up. Like, that's the hilarious part. Like, my parents were like, well, and it wasn't because they were against football. They were just, my dad was still playing. And so like, he made this deal with us. He was like, hey, play something in the off season or whatever, basketball, golf, like whatever. And he was like, when I'm done playing, you guys can play football. And I think they must have thought we just forgot or something. So anyway, we started playing football. And it was when I was in high school. I was a freshman in high school. I went out for the football team. I went out for tight end. I go out for a pass. The quarterback overthrows me, and probably because I was slow. And he overthrows me. I pick up the ball and I throw it back. And I remember the freshman football coach. I remember he said to the assistant coach, he goes, hey, son, come here. And he said to me, he goes, hey, why don't you get in the line for the quarterbacks? I don't want you to play tight end. I want you to play quarterback. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, shoot, he must have really been impressed with that throw that I just had. Like, okay, I can play quarterback. That's fine. And I remember him saying to the assistant coach loudly, so I could hear, he just had a deep voice. He was like, that kid's too skinny. He'll never be able to block anybody at tight end. So it's like, it wasn't a good thing that I got moved to quarterback. Luckily, I went to a high school that had a really great program and a lot of great players. And I was able to kind of hit puberty and develop and get stronger and turn into somebody who was a decent player.
Nice, man. That's cool. And how are Thanksgiving holidays? Like, I just figured like someone with that group of athletes and being brothers, competitive and stuff, I can see like each other like clowning on each other. Like, hey, well, hey, did you make it to the Super Bowl? No. And then your dad being like, well, guess what? I won a Super Bowl. And like, is there any kind of jokes like that? Or it's kind of like,
no. Well, first of all, you don't have those holidays when you're playing professional football. Like, you don't have a Thanksgiving, you don't have Christmas. Like, those are just work days. There's a time for a meal and a, time to be thankful. And obviously you honor those holidays, but like those have always been work days. When I was growing up, they were work days. College, high school football here in Massachusetts, it's all about the Thanksgiving Day rivalry game. Like, that is what it's all about here. It's like almost bigger than playing in the state championship game. I would say they're almost equal sometimes. And that's the rivalry. Those are games that have been going on for hundreds of years. I would say that before, I would just say, like, if my parents were on this right now, they would say, "Oh my gosh, our boys would compete at everything. They would fight. They would," and that is true. Like myself and my brother Tim in particular, whether it was basketball in the driveway or football in the front yard with like all the kids in the neighborhood or whatever it was, we were very, very competitive. But no, I think we also were like, on the same side. And quite honestly, like with like what you mentioned about like accolades and stuff, we didn't care. Like we didn't know. I mean, like these all these like footballs and stuff behind me and stuff like this. It's kind of hilarious. This was never displayed till COVID. It just was like junk. Like my dad had all these game balls from when he played, and like they weren't displayed. It's what we used. It's
Yeah.
like if we wanted to play catch, it'd be like game ball, Patriots versus Dolphins, like game ball. Like that's just what it was. I just did an interview with somebody about the Marshawn Lynch Beastquake ball. Like somehow that ball ended up in my daughter's room, and they were like, "Oh, where's the ball?" I'm like, "I don't know. My dog's name's Titan. Was named Titan. Like I'm like that ball's been in my dog's mouth probably. Like it's been in our swimming pool. Like it's just like it was never a big deal to us. Like it was just we thought it was normal, I guess.
That's wild though.
Yeah, looking back now, it's very wild.
Like, I don't know how people will receive that, man. No, I'm kidding. That's cool though. Now let's talk a little bit about getting drafted by the Packers and being mentored by Brett Favre. Is there anything that he taught you while you were a rookie? What was your kind of interaction with him?
Yeah, it was incredible. Like I'm talking incredible. I didn't expect to get drafted. I kind of had a roller coaster college career. Committed to Boston College because of Tom Coughlin. He was gone before the end of my freshman year. It was not how I drew it up.
Mhm.
In a sense, I get drafted to the Green Bay Packers. Very fortunate. I get there. Mike Holmgren's the head coach. Andy Reid's the quarterback coach. Brett Favre's the starter. The backup quarterbacks are Doug Peterson and Rick Meyer. I loved watching Rick Meyer when he was at Notre Dame. And obviously everyone knew who Brett was. Doug Peterson was super helpful to me as like a mentor and a coach. But I get to be in the room and watch these great coaches, Holmgren, Andy Reid, coach Brett Favre, who was incredibly humble. He was so great to me. He was like just the best leader I'd ever seen. Now, Andy said something to me the first day. He was like, "Hey, listen, don't copy his mechanics and his decision making. Like he gets away with stuff that no one could get away with, but like study the other stuff, study the intangibles with him." And that's what I tried to do. And it was really a dream come true getting an opportunity to be there. And, like I said, I was sort of allowed to be in the room more than I felt like I was like getting coached or on the team, but very grateful for all those guys and for the opportunity.
Now, when you're talking about, getting picked up by the Packers and sitting out and having Brett mentor you, do you feel like, and this is kind of segueing, we'll get back into what I needed to talk about, but do you think that that's something that now this day and age kind of like we lack? I feel like with players and having them start right away, these rookies, and having these issues with like a Caleb Williams or something like that, where they don't have someone to kind of mentor or sit out. Because back then that was the norm, right? Is that you
Yeah,
sit
time to develop. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and I was the draft class of 1998. That's the Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf, picks 1, 2. I was pick 187, So, funny story about Peyton Manning, real quick. So, our dads were teammates in Minnesota, actually. And so, Archie Manning was the third string quarterback with the Vikings that year when Les Steckel was the head coach. My dad was one of the backup tight ends. And every Saturday, it'd be like Cooper Manning, Peyton Manning, myself, and my brother Tim. And we would play like, touch football against like the equipment managers, athletic trainers, the kicker, the punter. It was like such a blast. Like we had like no idea. But how Peyton Manning came into the NFL was very different than how I came in. He came in as the first pick overall, Ryan Leaf as well. Those guys were just thrust out there. And, Ryan Leaf was put in, I think, in a tough situation. I think Peyton Manning was put in a tough situation. And I hear him joke about how many interceptions that he threw his rookie year. And I hear, I know there was a coaching change and all that kind of stuff. I would have failed miserably had I gone in at that moment Fortunately for me, like I got to sit there and watch Brett Favre, the 3-time MVP coming off of 2 consecutive Super Bowls, how he did it. I watched Andy Reid coach him, and I would write down all the questions that I wanted to ask if I was allowed to talk in the meeting. And on the walk from the quarterback room to the locker room, I would ask Doug Peterson the questions that I would have wanted to ask. Like, hey, what's it mean when they say this? What's it mean when they say that? And he was incredibly helpful. I think the biggest lesson for me, though, is all those quarterbacks that I played with over the course of 3 years in Green Bay, even guys like Danny Werfel. Like, there were so many guys that were Brett's backups. We were competing for that job. Like, we were competing for that job of being Brett's backup, but they were super, super helpful to me. And like, I think they taught me how to really be a true competitor where I'm not really competing against you. I remember Doug Peterson said this to me while I was in Green Bay. He said, I'm not competing against you and you're not competing against me. We are competing against ourselves. And here's why. Because this organization, they're going to go out and find anybody in the world that can do a better job than you. So root for me. I'll root for you. Let's help each other. Let's be the best that we can be. And like that was just such a different mindset than I had ever taken before in a quarterback room. And it was like just the best thing that ever happened. Did it come naturally and what happened right away? No, I had to work at it. But I think later in my career, when I had, guys like Jake Locker or Andrew Luck or like younger players in the room with me, it was just such a better way to be a great teammate and be good for the team and, be someone that you could be very proud of when you look in the mirror every day.
Nice, man. That's a good answer, man. Good stuff there, Matt.
Thank you.
Now,
just being honest, I mean, it wasn't always easy. Like when I first got to Seattle, they, traded for me to be the starter, and Trent Dilfer had just won the Super Bowl and was a free agent and signed with Seattle. And he was like, day one, he was like, hey man, I'm hoping that, you have the best year. I'm here to support you with whatever you need. And I was like, yeah, right, dude. You just won the Super Bowl. You just looked around the league and you're like, who have I never heard of? Whose job can I take? This guy. I'll definitely beat him out. And he was right. He beat me out. But no, it took a while to perfect that kind of a mindset where it's a you versus you mindset. And I really think that's the best thing. It's something that I try to teach younger quarterbacks and really teach anybody that I coach. It's like, it's the most freeing thing you can do. That way you never play to the level of your competition. You never over try when the game's too big or a big moment. You're not more nervous, and you never play down to the level of your competition. It's always be the best in everything that you do all the time. It's the best way to go.
Very nice. Now, like I said, you got traded to Seattle, and that's where you spent most of your career, and obviously where you thrived the most. By the way, shout out to Michael Roos. Show him the
Let's go. Mike Roos cooked. I got to find out what it means, but Roos is a great teammate. Number 71. He was at Eastern Washington University as a college player. When I was at training camp with the Seahawks, we would do it at Eastern Washington University before the field was red, before he donated the stadium turf to them. But our left tackle was Hall of Famer Walter Jones, and he was literally maybe the greatest player that's ever played at any position. He was just such an amazing player. And so I think that's why Mike Roos wore number 71 also. But it was great to, have played those 10 years in Seattle with Walter Jones for most of them. And then, get to come to Tennessee and then have another great left tackle in number 71 right there. It's a quarterback's best friend. I know my wife appreciated it also.
So yeah, shout out to Roos on that one. Going back to Seattle, 6 playoff appearances, 2005 Super Bowl, playing in the Super Bowl, taking them there. What was your expectations when you got to Seattle?
Yeah, my expectation was it's going to be easy. We're going to run this thing just like Brett Favre was running it in Green Bay, and that was got a big slap in the face on that. I had learned a lot about Brett in 3 years. I'd had really good preseasons. I had learned about a lot about how to be successful. But the thing I didn't really understand, and I don't think I could have understood this until I did it myself, it was how to play well while hurt, and that's something that Brett Favre. It's like one of his like superhero qualities. He played at such a high level, even when hurt. And, I played while hurt, but I played poorly, played really poorly. And it's one thing to like suck it up and get out there. It's another thing to raise your game. And I think one of the greatest things I could say about Brett, there are many, but one of the things that would be he seemed to play even better the more injured that he was. And people, when I was his backup, they'd always be like, "Oh, Brett Favre never gets hurt." I'm like, dude is always hurt. He just he plays and plays well. And it was crazy. I mean, just it was unbelievable. So really, my only opportunities to play there were in preseason and holding for Ryan Longwell on his field goals, and then lobbying with special teams coaches to see if I could get a couple of fake field goals in the game plan. And it literally would go something like this: it'd be like, come on, like you got to come on, let's come up with a fake field goal. Let's come up with a fake field goal. And they'd be like, no, our offense is good enough. I'm like, do you understand? I am never gonna play. Brett Favre never ever misses a snap. Like this is my one chance. Help me out, man. Help me out. So it was like a lot of lobbying and selling. And I think we got two called. They ended up both getting called on Monday night. But man, was it work. It was work to lobby. Luckily, we had really good special teams coaches who were creative and not afraid to take a risk. But that was it. Like if you were going to play behind Brett Favre, that was it. But I learned a lot from him when I got to Seattle. I learned the hard way and lost my job to Trent Dilfer, who came in when I got hurt and went undefeated, finished the year undefeated. He actually earned the job. And it wasn't until the next year, Trent tears his Achilles in the game where Emmitt Smith breaks the NFL rushing record. And I was more ready the second time around. I had learned a lot from Trent Dilfer. I had learned a lot watching Mike Holmgren coach him. And I went back into that Dallas Cowboys game, and Emmett got the record, but we got the win. And I was fortunate never to give the job back up again. And Trent was incredibly supportive, competitive, but supportive. And I really think that was like his leadership as well was a really important thing to the long-term success of the unselfishness on our team and the commitment to competing in everything we do. I don't care if it's your best friend, you compete. I don't care like if you don't get along with that guy, you cheer him on and compete. And that was just like the mindset there. And I think that's why we were in the playoffs in 03, 04, 05, 06, like 07. It kind of rolled because that was the DNA of who we became.
Definitely. That's amazing mindset. And I don't think, obviously, you must know, I don't think every team is built like that. You go to a different team and then you have that different where players play for mostly for themselves or kind of selfish and stuff like that. And you probably been in your career that you ran into a couple players like that and teammates like that. But let's talk about that playoff run in 03. Let's talk about the wild card loss against the Packers.
Yeah. So 03 was wild. So like that was like it was an awesome year. Like so much fun. Like we had no idea like what we were doing. We were young on offense. We were experienced and had some really awesome guys on defense. And Mike Holmgren's message to our team was like, guys, I did this in San Fran. We went and hoisted Lombardis. Like, I did this in Green Bay. We went and hoisted the Lombardi. Like, I know what it takes. We have what it takes in this room. I believe it. Coaches believe it. You guys don't believe it, though. You guys got to believe it. Like, you guys got to believe it. Like, you guys got to think it. So that was going on. Then the other thing that was going on, we had gone to Green Bay earlier that year, and everyone was saying to me, because I had just come from the Packers, hey, everyone's like, hey, just control your emotions, control your emotions. You're going to be a basket case. Like, you're already kind of like a little too loquacious for most people. Like, control your emotions. So we go there, Green Bay. I control my emotions. I play like a robot. I play boring. I don't play terrible, but we don't win the game.
Were you nervous going back?
No, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna listen to everybody. I'm gonna control my emotions, control my emotions. But you know what? That's how I played in college. And
Okay.
I had a very mediocre college experience. And I just played like a robot. It was just like, oh, they're in an under front. They're gonna bring the two backers to this side. I'm gonna throw hot to the running back. That's what the book says to do. Paint by numbers. And one of the things that Andy Reid said to me my first day in Green Bay, he said, watch how Brett Favre, watch the intangibles, like watch like the things that you don't measure at the combine. Like, what are some takeaways? One of my takeaways is this dude came to work like it was a snow day. He treated work like it was recess. He went out there and had fun. He cut it loose. And that's why he was so great. It was like, oh, you're going to underfront. They're going to bring the two backers. Like, yeah, the hot says there, but you're not covering the post. Boom, post. Like it was fun. And I was like, shoot, like that's how you need to play. So I learned that in Green Bay. And then I went back and played against Green Bay and I didn't do it. And I remember flying home from that game being like, if I ever get a chance to go back and play in Lambeau, like that was a missed opportunity. That's such a cool place to play against your friends. It's literally like a snow day or recess or gym class or whatever. Like cut it loose, have fun. Have fun. So we go out there. We don't expect to be in the playoffs. We're in the playoffs. Some crazy play happens. Some other team, we get in the playoffs. We're like, oh my gosh, we're in the playoffs. And Mike Holmgren gives that same kind of talk. Like, you guys need to believe that you're good enough. So we go out there, coin toss before the game. They got all their Hall of Famer captains from, Favre and everybody, really. And we go out there and they're better than us. Like, we knew it. Whatever. We're in Lambeau. It's fun. It's snowing. It's like, this is like a dream come true. Okay. I'd been on the sidelines for so many games, just holding for field goals. Like, I get to play quarterback in this game. Awesome. So anyway, the game goes to overtime. Like, I think they were embarrassed that the game, like, oh my gosh, the lowly. I think, yeah, it was like, so we go back out to the coin toss and I think they had like 6 captains. We had 3 and they don't bring everybody else out. It was, I don't know what that was. Like, I don't know if it was like they were embarrassed to be in overtime, but it was like such a good feeling. It was like literally talking smack to your brothers. Like, oh, he got you. Like, yes, you know it, just like make it, take it. And I came out there and my, like, literally one of my best friends in the world, Ryan Longwell, number 8 for the Packers, their kicker. I was his holder. I wore number 8 in Seattle, partially because I was such a big fan of his and he was a Seahawks fan. Like, this is like my guy. And I'm talking so much smack to him. Like, I don't curse, but like, I will talk some serious smack. So whatever, we, coin toss or whatever. And I'm like, we win it. And I knew that they had a great offense, but they didn't really believe in their defense. And so I said something like, we want the ball, we're going to score. Now it gets picked up on the mic, on the referee's microphone, but I didn't know that at the time. Like, I thought like maybe they kind of heard it. Like, wasn't sure, but definitely people at home heard it. And this is before like Twitter or whatever. So I get to the sideline and Mike Holmgren was like, what did you just do? Like, did something just happen? Like, do you have something to tell me? What just happened out there? But so I don't regret at all like that moment saying it, because I really believe that's the best way to play football. But I, obviously regret the game ends in an interception, Al Harris pick 6. So that's a bummer. But I do think like that year we lost in the last play of the game in the wild card, 0-3. We lost on the last play of the game, wild card game, to the greatest show on turf, the Rams, in 0-4. And those 2 losses, I think, really propelled us, really me, to being different in 0-5, to earning the 1 seed, being the best team in the NFC, taking the team to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, we didn't get it done at the end, but we should have. We had the opportunity. We didn't. But I don't know that I would change those 2 losses, because without them, I don't think we get to the Super Bowl in 0-5.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's one of those moments, man, where I was telling my friend, it's like almost like a Babe Ruth point to the stands type of moment,
I mean, okay, yeah, maybe. Like, if it happened, yeah,
if it happened,
yeah. I'm just telling you, like, I wish. Like, let's just pretend it was a touchdown, right?
Look, like,
Let's just say it was a hitch and go or
yeah,
a slant and go and it scored. Like I in good conscience, like I couldn't take the credit for that. I'd literally be like, I was just talking
would be
smack to
free. Like I
my
said, it was one
I
or
was-
the other. That's the thing. I mean, technically, you did throw a touchdown. I mean, you
I
did, but
did to the wrong guy.
to the
So
wrong guy.
we go to the Pro Bowl that year,
Uh-huh.
and I'm trying to think. The Packers lost the next week to the Eagles. The Eagles lost, so the Eagles lost after that. So the Eagles staff is the coaching staff in the Pro Bowl, and
Mhm.
there's a tradition at the Pro Bowl where you like trade helmets or whatever. I think
Okay.
it was right away. Anyway, of course, Al Harris wants to trade helmets with me. And so I did I sign his helmet or I signed my helmet? I guess I signed my helmet and
Mhm.
I wrote, we want the ball, we're going to score. And I gave it to Al Harris as he earned it. Now, listen, now he's gone on to be a coach and
Mhm.
he's a really good coach. Like he was the DB's coach in Dallas. He was the DB's coach in Kansas City. Like wherever he has been, I see his DBs jump routes,
Yeah.
like educated guess jump routes. And I'm like,
There it is.
there it is.
Now,
He's a
what
very
was the
smart
play
player.
though? Because I think didn't you change it? You changed the play on the line of scrimmage. I think.
Yeah. It was an audible.
Uh-huh.
It was third and like long, third and seven, third and eight, something like that. And I audibled to the audible that we predetermined that we were going to do. And they call timeout. They call timeout. They huddle everybody up. We go to the sideline and we talked about switching the personnel or switching the play. We kept it the same. And they come back out. Whatever they said on the sidelines, they said, hey, listen, if they go four wides again, we're going to go, whatever their, blitz was called. If they do it, be alert. This is their tendency. They usually go with blah, blah, blah. And it's really up to me to go right or left, pick right side or left side, protect us to the right, throw left, or protect us to the left, throw right. And the two corners, one was Mike McKenzie on one side, one was Al Harris on the other. Very different kind of players, very different. And looking back, I probably could have. One guy's a riverboat gambler, one guy plays it more by the book.
Yeah.
And so looking back, obviously I'd want to double move Al Harris and I'd want to throw not a deep ball on Mike McKenzie. But you live and learn with every interception. And had Green Bay gone on to win it all that year, I'd be sick to my stomach. The fact that they lost the next week, it was 7 days of misery. And then, but I also think that there was something cool about like, this is the mindset that we need to have, win or lose. Like the scoreboard's a little bit of a liar. Like you just commit to give it everything you freaking got, like all the time with anything that you're doing. I don't care if it's rock, paper, scissors. I don't care if it's warm up. I don't care if it's a lift or a run or a film session or competing in Lamb. I don't care what it is. You're all the way in. You're not playing scared. There are no training wheels. There is no, like, you're lifting without a spotter. Like, here we go. We're playing to win. And that is it. That mindset was developed out of a bunch of failures where you learn how to get better through the failure. And, I equate even that interception to, it's all right. Like you need a little more laser focus. Like you patted yourself on the back, you got to the right audible, but like now we need a little more focus to finish the play. Know the intricacies between the two different DBs, who your receivers are, which way you slide the protection, all the extra stuff that a veteran would learn and know how to do that, I was still learning.
Definitely. In your time with Seattle, you had some nice running backs. Sean Alexander, stud.
Yeah.
Lynch.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, we started out, I had Ricky Waters. I mean, I was playing with that dude on Tecmo Bowl, and then I'm all of a sudden teammates with him. I was like, dude, Ricky Waters? I remember my first start playing in Cleveland, and I'm like in the huddle. I'm like, dude, I'm in the huddle with Ricky Waters. Like, how sick is that? And the backup was like our first round pick from Alabama, future MVP, Sean Alexander. Like, it was cool. It was a very, very awesome thing.
Definitely. let's talk just a little bit about the Super Bowl, your experience getting to play against the Steelers that year.
Yeah, I mean, a great learning lesson. We had a great year. We were the 1 seed. We lost our first game, and we lost our last game that we were kind of like resting our starters. Like it wasn't even, it was kind of like we had the home field advantage locked up. We had the first round bye locked up. And then we lost it. We lost one other game that was like a field goal that hit the post.
Mhm.
Other than that, like we really had an amazing season. They, on the other hand, were a wild card team that had to go on the road every week to keep it going. And, like it doesn't matter. Like once you get into playoffs, everybody's 0-0. It does not matter what kind of year you had. And they played outstanding. They went and they beat the Colts. They went to Denver, beat Denver. They beat us. I mean, they were good. They got it done. And so a lesson we had to learn the hard way, but and a lesson I wish I didn't learn that way, but
Yeah.
a lesson learned.
What would you take out of the Super Bowl? Out of one thing?
I think greater focus. We had some calls that didn't go our way. I had a
Yeah,
touchdown
I
pass on
remember
the
that.
first drive that got called back, and then we had another um, holding call that I anyway. So like the ball would have been at the one. We had the best goal line back in football that year. Sean Alexander would have been I think from the one, first and goal from the one would have been a touchdown. I lost my focus. Like I was so angry.
Afterwards.
Um, with officiating during the game that I lost my focus. And so, me as a dad, it's been very, very helpful for me as a father to teach my kids, like, hey, the officials are human. They're going to do the best they can. You don't worry about that. That is way outside your control. You worry about you and nothing else. So I learned that lesson the hard way because on that one um, holding call that I disagreed with, I was so angry the very next play. I like didn't like kind of hit that clear button and move on to the next play,
Mhm.
threw an interception on the next play. And it was like just so unnecessary. And a little bit of miscommunication between me and really one of my go-to guys. But it was really a lack of focus. But it was a great experience. I just wish that we would have played our best that day.
Definitely, definitely. Now, the part everyone's been wanting to know.
Let's go.
You go to
Tennessee.
Tennessee, man. What? How did that happen? And what was told? Like, what did they tell you? Were you just going to be a veteran to help this Tennessee Titans offense and the quarterback? Explain away, because
I wasn't expecting it. I was
okay.
expecting to be back in Seattle. My last meeting with Pete Carroll, John Schneider, all those guys, they were like, "You're our number one priority in the free agency. We appreciate you playing through injury. We appreciate." It was like all great. I was like, "I appreciate you. We appreciate you." It was great. The NFL lockout came,
Yeah.
and I didn't hear anything from Seattle at all. And, I wasn't sure, are they just following the rules or have they changed their mind? Um, it was my thought that they were probably just following the rules, but I had heard because I was involved in the NFLPA, I had
Okay.
heard of some other teams that, maybe their teams weren't following the rules like they were supposed to be. So like it was just this weird time at this NFL lockout. And I remember when the lockout gets lifted and training camp's going to be like the next day or maybe 2 days later. And I get a call from the Seahawks and they were like, hey, um, we really appreciate you, but your career's got to end at some point. We kind of think that this might be the right time to make a clean break. We're hiring a new offensive coordinator, a new O-line, just like a new thing. We're going to try to build the defense. You'll get killed this year on this team. And like, I was really hurt and surprised, but then also at the same time, like, um, maybe not surprised. So anyway, so my two options to sign with were the Niners and Tennessee, and I was feeling a little bit unsure about going to like a bitter rival
Yeah.
in the Niners. And didn't know that much about Tennessee. They had a new coach and Mike Munchak. He had just been hired. And I didn't know anybody on the staff. Mike Reinfeldt was there, who was in Green Bay and Seattle. And I knew that he saw things in that like Ron Wolf, Mike Holmgren, Andy Reid way, which I appreciated. That's kind of how I see things. And I talked to two people on the phone. I talked to Mike Munchak, and I talked to Dow Loggins, and I might have talked to Mike Reinfeld also. And their selling point for Tennessee and what they were building and their vision for it and how I fit into that picture was incredible. I mean, it was perfect. Like I couldn't have said it any better. They believed what I believed. The draft had already happened. They had drafted Jake Locker. I want to say he was the 8th pick overall. I might have that wrong, but I think he was the 8th pick overall. Do you know the answer to that?
I don't. It sounds good.
Okay, I think he was a very high pick, and he was in Seattle, University of Washington. I didn't really know him.
Okay.
We had a lot of mutual friends. I saw him working out. Like during the lockout, we were working out at the University of Washington, and I'd be working out with all the NFL guys and some NBA guys because they wanted to play catch too, and that was fun. Down at one end of the indoor facility at UW, and then Jake and his guys would be working out down at the other end. But I didn't really know him, but I had heard really great things. And anyway, they just gave me the opportunity to go there and be the starter and hopefully play at a high level. And, whenever they basically were like, hey, it's not your job to mentor him. We just want you to play and be a pro and he'll see it. And I was good with that. And they also had a really strong offensive line. They were bragging about this guy named CJ2K. I don't know if you've heard of him, but they were like, hey, you're 30, you're going to be 36 years old. I think I was going to be 36 years old. And they were like, you just hand the ball off to CJ2K and we'll run these plays and that play. And they were like very, very convincing. They didn't tell me that CJ2K was going to hold out that whole year, but pretty much, but no, it was so then anyway, like it was less than 24 hours. I decided on Tennessee and I was really excited about it. And I took a red eye flight and I think training camp was like the next day.
Nice.
It's crazy.
Now, your first interaction with Jake Locker, what's kind of some of the things you like I said in your career, you said you kind of helped mentor. Did you kind of give him the same advice or kind of what did you?
Let me just say this. It was Jake Locker and Rusty Smith. And like both those guys were way younger than me, probably closer in age to my kids than they were to me, but like they were amazing. Like whatever I did for them, I promise you they did more for me. In the first time I met Jake, was in the indoor facility at the University of Washington, and we were throwing with footballs, and it was the lockout. So I had like these old beat up footballs. Like couldn't even get footballs from the teams at the time. And I had these beat up footballs, and I said something negative. Like I said something like, oh, that's a terrible ball or something like that. And Jake just matter of factly said, a poor craftsman blames his tools. And I was like, oh, like, I love that. I'm going to use that. Anytime my kids like complain about something, I'm going to use that. Like that was Jake. He just was like wise beyond his years, had a heart of gold, incredibly athletically talented. And both Jake and Rusty just had this like maturity about them that was really great. Cause I was a lot older and a lot less mature in some ways, but I really loved sharing a quarterback room with those guys.
Now, how was it your time with the Tennessee Titans? If you don't mind, I have right here my first Titans game ever that I actually went by myself. I was living in Miami. All right. It was.
There he is against. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, no. Is this the overtime game?
Yep. It's the overtime game. And it was actually, I was sitting in the end zone when he threw the ball, when Andrew Luck scored, when they scored.
Vic Ballard flipping over. Yeah. So listen, like that's the game that turned the tide. Like we shouldn't have lost that game, but we did. But because we lost that game, we didn't make the playoffs that year, and they did. I mean, that was the game, and we had numerous opportunities to win that game. We had on offense at the other end zone. We had like the perfect play call for an all-out cover zero blitz, and we fumbled the snap. Like I really didn't fumble snaps often in my career. Eugene Amano was our center, great center. Had a great chemistry with it. I have no idea why we fumbled the snap to this day. And the fullback was wide open for a walk-in touchdown from like somewhere in the red zone. And just like play after play after play in that game, like we had opportunity after opportunity. That one game where we just, I don't know what happened. And there, you could point to another game here or there, but like that game, Yeah, that was a tough one. That was a tough one because I do believe I know if we win that game, we're in the play. It's like a whole different vibe.
Yeah,
It's
because
a
I
whole
think
different vibe for Mike Munchak. It's a whole different vibe for other free agents that want to join this team. We had something brewing. We didn't have Chris Johnson for most of the beginning of the year because of the holdout. There were just like a lot of things that really I feel like would have been different had that game gone differently.
definitely. I think that was the year, right? That I think you got. Did we go? Is that the one we missed? It was 9-7, and we missed it, but with the Bengals, the
I
Bengals.
think I think it was like a tiebreaker. We
Tiebreaker.
we lost the tiebreaker, and it's just because I think we were 9-7. Could be wrong, but like all it was just like the tiebreaker, and I think we lost the tiebreaker to the Colts. And credit to them, they were the 32nd ranked team the year before.
Yeah.
But there was a little bit of dysfunction. There was a little bit of dysfunction in terms of like
Organizational wise.
organizational, like where we were at the time. There was some growing up to do. There was just some things that maybe needed to be a little bit better. And so 2 years later, I think it was 2 years later, or whenever Chuck Pagano was going through cancer,
Mhm.
and the Colts team was like really just like a team on the rise. Like it just felt like there was really something special going on with that organization at the time. Like he had cancer, he was going through, he had lost his hair with his treatments, and players were shaving their head. They had cheerleaders shaving their heads. Like it was just like this, it was like this special thing. Their quarterback, Andrew Luck, was doing really well. And I think there's been moments in time where an organization kind of like everyone's on the same page, everyone's unselfish, everyone's committed to the same goal. And the Titans certainly got there, but I think we were just kind of finding our way at that point a little bit.
Definitely. Now, you played with Nate Washington, Damian Williams, Craig Stevens, CJ2K, Jared Cook. Who was kind of your go-to person? Could have been a tight end, could have been a wide receiver. And how'd you guys get that connection? And what makes a good connection between wide receiver and quarterback, man?
Man, it's great to hear some of those names. I haven't heard those names in a long time. Well, listen, a lot of those guys, we had three great tight ends. We had Craig Stevens, we had Jared Cook, we had Daniel Graham, like all different shape, sizes, skill level, or not skill level, like skill, um, like focus, like, Daniel Graham, maybe one of the best blocking tight ends the game has ever seen. Jared Cook is as good as most wide receivers. Craig Stevens was sneaky good at both. I mean, I remember Mike Tomlin before a game came up to me and he's like, "Hey, where's your tight end?" I'm like, "Which one?" And he's like, "The one that's the best blocking tight end in the NFL." I'm like, "Oh, he's right there, Daniel Graham." Like everyone thinks that. He's like, "Yeah, he's good too." No, the other guy, Stevens. I was like, "Oh, it's quite a compliment. He's averaging 19 yards a catch right now. Like, let's go." But no, our wide receiver group was great. It was Kenny Britt. Like Kenny Britt was like the guy. Like I got there, it was like, "Oh, Kenny Britt. We got Kenny Britt. Like Kenny Britt. He's amazing. He's amazing." And I had a great rapport with Nate Washington and Mark Mariani and Damian, like all the guys, really, Lavelle Hawkins, like great. But Kenny Britt was the guy with like potential through the roof, like just through the roof. And, I think he would tell you like maybe maturity was probably something that he needed to work on, but his talent level was amazing. And then we ran a play, I believe it was early in the year, believe it was against the Broncos or the Ravens, one of those two games at home. And he's running like like a kind of a slide route on a naked bootleg, and he gets taken out low and he tears his ACL early in the year. And it was crushing. It was crushing because really what our whole offense was predicated on was we had all these concepts with a lot of great, good wide receivers that would kind of play the strong side. And then we had our run game. But if at any point someone wanted to leave our X receiver, the guy away from the tight end, one-on-one, it was Kenny Britt, and we had all his little route tree that we were just gonna dominate with. And he was great. We started out, I think, in Jacksonville, he was great, and then came back home for a game, and when he tore his ACL, it was a tough blow. But I had a great rapport with Nate Washington, for a guy that he, like me, wasn't highly drafted or wasn't like the Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf kind of person coming out of a big college or whatever. He was great, but it was a little bit of a committee once KB got hurt.
Definitely. Now, how was it playing? Like we talked about before, running backs and playing with a really, really good, solid running back. How easy it is it for a quarterback to know he has a good running back, that there's something, that threat in the backfield?
Well, the bet, I think it's a little bit of a misnomer. What a
Okay.
quarterback really wants is
Okay.
pass protection. That's what
Perfect.
a quarterback really wants.
Oh, that's the Titans.
But in order to get pass protection,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be able to run the ball to help out your offensive line.
Yes.
And so if you have got a great runner, that's going to help out your offensive line. And now you can run the ball. They get to fire off more than they have to drop back and be passive. They can be aggressive. And so we had obviously one of the great running backs ever in Chris Johnson. We also had Javon Ringer, who was a good runner. We had a group of guys that were good runners for sure. But CJ2K was what everybody feared, because if he got through, he was gone. Kind of like you saw with Saquon or King Henry. Like once they got through, they were gone. No one was catching them. And that was the home run hitter that we were missing when he held out. And then I think just like with all the players that I ever played with that held out at that position, it's just different. Like you're not there, it's unfair to you, it's unfair to the team. It's not like, agents get in the way, and it's unfortunate, but um like the O-line, like they love having like a stellar runner, and the quarterbacks, we love having an O-line that can do their job. So it all like kind of works together. Like you help me, or you help them, help me, and I'll help you. Kind of like all this kind of stuff with
Definitely.
the light box and all the stuff. So we had on paper what really should have been really good. And we just need to play a little bit better, and then I think we would have really got on a roll.
Definitely. Now, is there a type of play that you liked running with the Tennessee Titans that might have been like maybe your favorite play?
Yeah. So we had this. It was a totally brand new thing that I had never done before. So we ran what's called all go in my old world, but like it's basically four verticals.
Okay.
You run four verticals, but then that's how everyone did it. Four verticals and then the back on an option route. So everybody goes deep in the back on an option route. That was one of my favorite plays, always. And I get to Tennessee, and Chris Palmer was the offensive coordinator, and he came from the New York Giants with Eli Manning, and he basically put the play in the same way. But there was a little caveat to it. Okay, it's four verticals, but there were two other things. If the tight end didn't feel like he could win versus a too high and couldn't get the bender, he could throw on the brakes and run like basically like a 10, 12-yard out route. It was like, oh, that's awesome for him, but how does the quarterback know? Like, how do I know? And then the receivers out there, like if they felt like they couldn't win on the go route, they could just run a comeback at like 18 to 15 yards, like they just run a comeback. But again, like how does the quarterback know? Like how do I see over there and over there? I'm not like Admiral Akbar, from Star Wars. Like what? But my brother had played in that offense in New York with Coach Palmer and with Eli Manning. And he was like, listen, I know what you're saying. I kind of know what you're complaining about. Like it's hard to like master that kind of a play, but it'll help you if you do. Like figure it out. And so what I did is I tried to like really learn the personalities of our guys, and like who thought, oh yeah, I can beat him deep, or who had that like Eeyore personality, like I don't know if I can beat him deep. And that became my favorite play. And really, the tight ends nailed that play. Like they just nailed it. Like they were probably my favorite thing. And in fact, I'm coaching now, and it's one of my favorite plays. Like everybody go deep, and we'll assign one of you. If you don't think you can get it, then run an out route, and we're good.
Nice.
It's undefendable. It's really great.
All right. What is your favorite memory as a Tennessee Titan?
Man, most of my great memories, like great memories, probably have like nothing to do with football, like relationships and moments and hilariousness and just some epic things. Like in Nashville, of all the places that I've lived, Nashville is got to be my favorite. It's just a really special place, and we've got some special friends, and I've been very fortunate. I've got great friends all over and lived in great cities, but like there's something unique and special about Nashville. I think everyone would say that. But if I had to choose like a football memory, from Tennessee. Um, I don't know. There's some good ones. I do remember a game we were playing. I think it was against Tampa, and it was just horrible weather, like just nasty, just awful weather. And we came back and won the game. I think I'm forgetting who it was. If it was Nate Washington or somebody like that in the back of the end zone. It was pretty cool. And why I like that game is they put it on a football card. And so like I'm reminded of it constantly because like when I get the card in the mail or whatever and I go to sign it, I recognize like the weather, what I was wearing, and like I'm pointing, I'm telling somebody in the back of the end zone, and it's just like, oh, I remember that. That was a game winner. But that was a great memory. I had a great memory. We played at Buffalo. I hit Nate Washington on a touchdown at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. That was a good memory. So those two are on the podium. I think my number one memory, though, would be a Thursday night game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I still had this hurt in my heart about losing that Super Bowl to the Steelers, and we're playing them, and they had a really good defense, and Dick LeBeau, a tremendous amount of respect for him. And they brought a blitz. I think it was James Harrison maybe in coverage, and I had Jared Cook coming across the field, and I hit him and sets up a Rob Baronis field goal on Thursday Night Football, and it was just like the coolest moment ever. And I had told my kids like, hey, if we win this game, prime time and like the NFL Network crew, they're going to be at the game. I told my son, like, you can go see prime time because he was in a commercial at that time that he really liked. And so we win the game, and then my son's out there post game, and him and Coach Prime. It was just a cool moment against the Steelers and kind of a team effort, ending with a game winning field goal. So that's probably that's the gold medalist for me.
Nice, nice. Now, before I let you go, what happened with your contract? Didn't you sign a 3-year deal? And
Yeah,
I just stay
yeah.
clear, man.
It was so basically, I mean, the quick version of it was a lot of quarterbacks around the league, young quarterbacks around the league were having a lot of success. And when I signed with Tennessee originally, Mike Reinfeldt was kind of in charge, and he said, listen, you're going to be the starter. Jake is going to go at his timing. Whenever he's ready to be the starter, he'll be the starter. Okay. How we kind of envision that is you'll probably get hurt on the field someday, and he'll come in and save the day, and then he'll never look back. And I was really good with that. And I was really tight with Jake, and I really wanted the best for him. Mm-hmm. And so going into year 2, there were a lot of other quarterbacks around the league having a lot of success. Jake had played a little, and he played well. But I think there was just pressure from guys around the league, like Andy Dalton or, just like other guys having success. And I think that, Mike Reinfeldt wasn't in the building anymore, I don't think. And I think they just like, they basically said to me like, hey, we think it's just his time. And, I sort of disagreed, and I felt like they did him a disservice that way, the decision. And, I feel strongly about, protecting young quarterbacks like that. Yeah. And then in that third year, they basically were like, hey, we want you to take a pay cut because you're just a backup quarterback. And I sort of bowed up a little bit. I was like, well, I'm a backup quarterback because you decided you wanted to make me a backup quarterback. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't any ill will or anything like that, but I think I was at a point in my career where I valued very much people that were close to hoisting a Lombardi. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going to the Colts, who had another young quarterback that reminded me a lot of Jake and Andrew Luck, coachable, tough, talented. And, they were a team, they were in the playoffs, and then the wild card divisional. We went to the AFC Championship game, and certainly felt weird because my my kids were very, very loyal to T-Rack, the Titans mascot. So then when we got up to Indianapolis, I had some explaining to do to them. But
You had the horseshoe, the thing that's weird looking. But yeah,
careful, you're gonna get a pie in the face.
I seen that. It's pretty. Whoever does it, man, they're pretty brutal. Does it with some.
Cutthroat.
Yeah,
The mascot. That listen, I will say, growing up as a dad, like people just, I don't know if they think it's like fantasy football.
man.
But like, we're real people.
Yeah.
I have a wife who hears everything people say in the stands. I have kids who have this irrational emotional attachment to the team mascot. So Blitz in Seattle or what, and like the hardest thing as a NFL quarterback who has kids is getting your kids to change allegiance from T-Rack to like the next team's mascot or whatever. It's a real it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
I mean, I've never heard of that before, but I could see that, especially younger kids and stuff. And
Well, I guess when you're an older quarterback, I was 40 at the end, so my bad.
no, there's nothing wrong with that, man. All right. Before I let you go, man, I have 3 questions. I usually try to get fan engagement. They like to hear and try to ask questions. All right. There's a couple of them that we knocked it out, so I'm not even going to go there. This is from hashtag the Big French Dog Podcast. He says, being around so many different players, who was your favorite player to play alongside, and are you still in communication?
Well, I played 18 years and had a lot of great teammates. It would be impossible to pick one. I think just for this audience, I was asked this question, similar question by Jim Wyatt, maybe, or somebody in Tennessee.
Oh, not
And
too.
and my answer, I mean, I could have picked a ton of guys,
Yeah.
but the way I answered it, I think I would stand by. Locker rooms are super tight, but they can also be clicky. There was one guy that I played with that like universally the whole locker room loved this guy. Like players, offense, defense, special teams, coaches, administrators, staff, the fans. Like this dude is just like everyone loved him, like everybody. And that was Mark Mariani from Montana.
Yeah.
As I usually say Montana, but Montana. Like, and I could pick a bunch of people, but
Yeah.
Mark was just he's a really good player who, wasn't super highly drafted and all that kind of stuff. Just overcame, whatever limitations. Wasn't the tallest, like what wasn't necessarily, but he was just a awesome teammate and a ton of fun. And I think universally, I think you'd get like 100 out of 100 teammates would say, love that guy.
Perfect. We have another one. Slick Rick 626 wants to know, what was, if any, your favorite cheat meal in Nashville?
Cheat meal. They all were cheat meals. Shoot, that was half the problem. Now I remember, listen, I don't want to offend any team sponsors here, but when we would travel, so my first year in Tennessee, when we would travel, there was a Chick-fil-A sandwich on our seats for every game, on the way there and on the way back. It was Chick-fil-A. And I don't know how they did it because it was Sundays. So now I'm wondering if it was on the way back. We always had Chick-fil-A. Oh, I know why. Because it was just on the way there because we would fly there the day before. So it wasn't on the way back. We'd always have Chick-fil-A though. And then my last year in Tennessee, we signed with it wasn't Chick-fil-A. Like, I don't want to offend who it was. I think it was Bojangles, but and it was like a mutiny. Like I remember Jake Locker and Rusty Smith, they were like, we are not going to stand for this. Like we want Chick-fil-A. Like, and I grew up in Boston. We didn't even have Chick-fil-A. Like I thought it was just like a college football field goal thing. Like I don't even know what it was, So, but we loved Chick-fil-A. And I also love going to the O-line dinners with those guys every Thursday night. Those guys, they know how to find all the great restaurants in Nashville.
Definitely. Now the last question. I knew this was going to come up. His name is Backin. Backin wants to know, being a former QB, what do you think the Titans should do at the position moving forward? Do we draft Ward or Sanders with the first pick? And if so, who do you prefer? Or do we bring a veteran in? which is
Yeah, I think this is a big question. Listen, I'm coaching high school football now, and I coached in Boston for 2 years, and then I was coaching with my brother at Ensworth High School in Nashville. And I think I have got a newfound appreciation for how hard coaching is. I think probably could say the same about scouting. It was like very easy when I was playing. I was like, oh, why don't we just, do this or do that? Um, I don't know how popular this will be or whatever, my opinion, but I
opinion.
really think, I really think that there's a way to have Will Levis be the long-term solution in Tennessee. However, and I could be biased because of my own situation, what that could look like is bringing in Aaron Rodgers to be the starter and having him be what Trent Dilfer was to me after he had just won the Super Bowl. Like Trent had things about his game and about his personality and about his coachability and leadership style that I needed to develop as a young player. I had some strengths that maybe Trent didn't have, but he had the stuff that kind of mattered. Like if we had gone to a combine, like I might have been better at the combine than Trent, but he was a way better leader and quarterback for our team. And so like I just, I don't know if it can work out, but like to me, having played with some great players and the Brett Favres and even like the Jeff Georges and like some of like these guys that their names and their arm, their career, like you can learn a lot from those guys. So like maybe Aaron Rodgers plays one more year of football. He gets to run this Joe Burrow, Brian Callahan offense. And sometimes a young quarterback, you take a step back to take two steps forward. You saw it with Bryce Young this year. And maybe, just maybe, like if and when Aaron gets hurt or finishes his career, he's done. He says, hey, I've had enough. He's able to provide some really steady quarterback play and rub off on a guy who I think has like all the tools in Will Levis. I think he's got all the tools, but I see in him a lot of what I saw in myself. And that is some of these things that are intangibles,
Mhm.
they need to be fed and maybe seeds have been planted, but maybe they need to be watered. They need some sunshine. They need fertile soil. And I think I believe in that coach. I believe a veteran like an Aaron Rodgers could be something special. And that way you can spend, draft picks and all the other stuff on other stuff to build the roster. And you don't have to punt on the potential that I know is there in Will Levis. I know the potential is there. We just need to like learn from mistakes. And the thing that I did in my career early on is I wrote this at the top of my notebook every day: make new mistakes, and that's, I think, the key.
All right. Well, Matt, I've had you long enough. I know you're a busy man. I want to first say thank you so much for the time you spent in Nashville. Loved watching you play. And we still love you in Nashville. Always a fan favorite. And there's always a home for you in Nashville if you ever want to come back and start coaching again. So we might.
I'm coaching at Ensworth High School, so there you go. Come by Friday nights, wear your orange and black. We'll be there.
There you go. Well, thank you so much, Matt. I do appreciate it, man. All right.
Yeah, you're welcome.